What's up, everybody? Back Saturday this week. We're one day late, normally on Fridays, but here we go talking football with Gabriel. The Bears are 1-2, and there's a lot of stuff we have to talk about this week. Greg, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Sorry about yesterday, but my wife was off yesterday, and I had a list of honeydews.
A
That
list
was
of
real.
hey, I understand that, but see, for me, I think it actually worked out better. Today's a good day. I'm feeling hyped up. We're 24 hours away from Bears football right now.
Exactly 24 hours.
Exactly 24 hours away, and we have a prime slate of college football games I'm going to be watching on my TV today as well. So we're going to keep it. We won't be here extra long today, guys, because we're both going to be watching some college football. But anything you wanted to get started with first, Greg?
I just lost.
Oh, he's cutting out a little bit. So the first thing I was thinking was, I don't know if you heard this, but Ryan Poles' comments to the coaching staff about the offensive line. Were you able to hear that one yet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so he basically, it was in an interview this week. I don't remember who it was with, but he said the problem is with communication, fundamentals, and techniques. That's a shot at the coaches, if you ask me. He said he did not believe it was a talent issue. So that was, to me, it was Ryan Poles taking his shot at Chris Morgan, Shane Waldron, the entire coaching staff, that he believes the talent on this offensive line is better than the coaches are getting out of it. What is your thoughts on that?
We got to see it. And I'm going to say this. I wrote about it earlier. I spoke about it on my show with Aldo on Monday. Then I wrote about it because I went back and I looked at the tape. And not only did I look at the tape of the Colts game, but I got so curious after I watched the Colts game that I went back to the Tennessee game and the Houston game. And man, I saw the same thing in all three games. But the first game, the Colts, the week before, they give up a gazillion yards rushing to Green Bay. So everybody thinks that you're going to be able to run on the Colts. Wrong. The Colts were playing. Did you watch the game film?
Yeah, and I said the same thing. So
they had as many as 9 people within 8 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yep. And
their deep safety was 8 yards back, 8.5 yards back.
On top of that, so we all thought the Colts' run defense was the worst in the league. And I said it myself. I think it was an outlier. The first 2 weeks of the year, they went against the Packers, who didn't have a pass game because Jordan Love was out. And they ran with Josh Jacobs 30 times and ran with Malik Willis. And then Joe Mixon ran all over him week 1. So I think the Colts, they're not that bad of a run defense, but I'm still disappointed we weren't able to run on them.
But you can't. The point I'm trying to make is that how the Colts tried to fix it. Because you go back and you look at the Colts game the week before, they weren't playing people like that.
They were playing double high safety.
Right. So they're playing. I have this. I might still have the stats here. This is just from the first half because it carries over. First half of the Colts game, 8 in the box, 15 plays. 9 in the box, 6 plays. Then 7 in the box, 9 plays. Now, and when I say in the box, I mean that's really up close. Then you look, there's only a handful, not even a handful of plays, the whole game when a safety was beyond 10 yards deep.
Ooh. They
just crowded the line of scrimmage. Now, part of it, I think, was that helped the Colts was if I'm Waldron, I'm spreading out the offense a little bit more because the receivers were in a little bit tight. And that brought the corners in closer to where the ball was too. So spread them out a little bit more. And at least you have a little room. But you cannot have 5 guys try to block 8 or 9. It's not going to happen. I don't care if you can have all pros across the front line. You aren't going to block. You're going to get your run game's going to get stuffed. So, so then I said, okay, let's see if the other teams are doing it. Guess what? They're doing it too, and that's where the Colts got it from. Now, Tennessee started it, but Tennessee wasn't playing the safeties up as close. Okay, but then Houston started too, and they all came with the same thing. You know what? Tennessee did it. We're going to do it because they want to run. They're trying to protect the rookie quarterback. They want to run, and if they're successful moving the chains and keeping the down and distance in the right area through the run game, that makes the passing So we're going to take away their run and make him throw. And that's exactly what they did. I do not think the Rams can do that.
Yep, and that's another reason why. I mean, Waldron took advantage of that in some aspects. That's why Caleb Williams threw the ball so much. That's why he threw for 363 yards, and he actually left some more yards on the film, or more yards on the field when you look at the film. That throw he missed DJ Moore on that third down, or he missed Romo Dunze on the one-on-one deep down the sideline. He overthrew him by like 10 yards on that one. He had DJ open over the middle of the field. So there's more stuff. He can get better than that, I think.
Right. And then Rome had the drop too on the play that got intercepted.
Oh yeah.
That's a pass that 95 out of 100 times he's going to make that catch.
Yeah. The defender was just somehow got his arm up there, tipped the ball up.
Right.
And that's what. So that brings me to my next point then. When it comes to that offensive line, what are your thoughts on Chris Morgan? He's the guy who was brought back. He was here for 2 years with Shane Waldron. And then not only is he our offensive line coach, but he was promoted. He's also our running game coordinator right now.
Technically, he was running game coordinator before.
Gotcha.
He just officially got the thing. But, you know, he's got a good reputation around the league. And he's worked in this scheme before when he was with Shanahan in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, they had success with him before, meaning the scheme has had success. So I think he has to do it. And I know Poles had taken a liking to him. Now, whether he is falling back onto that, I don't know. I mean, you know, real good offensive line coaches are hard to come by. You know, and you got to get a guy who's a good teacher. I've worked with some real good ones, with Harry Heastan being the best by far.
He was great, yeah.
Yeah, but not only was Harry good, Harry was very demanding. Harry was an old school coach, but the players, like the lines we had in the middle 2000s, where we had several guys who were either all pro then or had been all pro. You know, John Tate, Olin Kreutz, Reuben Brown, Roberto Garza. We had some pretty freaking good linemen.
I love Garza, man. Fred Miller, too, even played pretty well, yeah.
Do you follow Garza on Facebook?
I don't do much.
Okay, so the dude's, 50 years old now?
Yeah.
He's got this big, like, it looks like converted garage. I mean, it's a big area. It looks like a truck garage that he's got lifted or converted into a weight room. And he's got a weightlifting school down in Texas. And the lifts that dude still does at his age is just incredible. Because you see, there's one on Facebook where he's doing like a set of 20 squats with like 375 on it.
Doesn't he like not have an ACL too?
Doesn't have an ACL.
Just crazy, man. That guy.
It's a freak. Here's what happened. So he has ACL surgery, and when he was with Atlanta, I believe, and they put in an ACL from a cadaver, and then he becomes a free agent, goes up to Baltimore. He's going to sign with Baltimore. He flunks the physical. Because when they did an MRI in the knee, there was no ACL there. The cadaver ACL had basically disintegrated.
Oh, yeah.
And so we brought him in, and our doctors looked at him, and I know the orthopedic doctors here are the same right now, are the same guys that were here when I was there, and they're very, very good guys. And they just looked at it, and they had to do some stuff, and they said, I think he's a freak. That he's just one of the very few that can do it. I mean, he never missed games here. And he's never, it's just that his quadriceps were so strong that it overcame what the ACL ligament does. But very few, if any. I mean, I'd never heard of a guy. Thurman Thomas had no PCL, and it was actually from Thurman Thomas having that no PCL that the doctors started changing their opinion on having to have a PCL and doing that radical surgery.
Man, yeah, that's wild. I loved Roberto Garza. He was a guy, got his autograph at training camp, talked to him, shook his hand. Great guy.
Oh, I played golf with him a few times, and super guy. But that whole group of linemen, now they'd go to at Bourbonnais like one day a week during camp. They'd go to cross the street to TJ's. You know where TJ's was, that bar?
TJ, yeah, TJ's.
Okay, so they'd go into TJ's at night, and I don't know if they closed the place down, but they were there a few minutes past curfew, put it that way. And it always cost them some money and fines, but that was their way of bonding. Right. And they do it once a week. And
I wish our offensive line would bond more right now, honestly.
But a good group of guys. Ola was a leader, but to get back to the point I was making is, Harry could coach real hard, but with some of those guys, he was, say, less intense because they knew what the hell they were doing. But then if one guy got hurt and you had to put a rookie in there, now he'd rip that guy just for making a minor mistake, because he put the pressure on them to play as good as the veterans.
Oh, wow. Yeah, 100%. And Doug had a great question here for you. He said, can you describe why a coaching change can cause an offensive line like we have that was very good at run blocking a year ago to suddenly and sharply regress?
I'm going to go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. Right now, first 3 games, based on the tape study, the defenses are not allowing the Chicago Bears to run. And that is by design. So it's you're overloading the box. You're doing run blitzes on top of regular pass rush blitzes. You're doing run blitzes. You're trying to stop the run, to put the Bears behind the chains, 3rd and long situations, make Caleb pass, and then they're sending pressure on the passing downs to break up the pass game. It's worked really well. The best way to break that is have an experienced quarterback, because you can't do that shit with a guy that knows what he's doing. And I think with Caleb, the light started to come on in the second half last year, or last week, starting to figure it out. And now I think when the Rams see that on tape, they're going to go, oh, wait a minute. And they don't have, let's be fair, they don't have the people on defense that these first 3 teams did.
Yep. That's a big.
I'm
worried about Jared Verse. Jared Verse is a monster, I think, and he's been playing lights out.
I know you like him. I like him, but I don't like him as.
They were showing some charts that he's up there in the top 5 so far. There's just 3 games, but as far as pass rush win rate, pressure percentage, he's been. They don't have the really
interior guy, after Aaron Donald's gone. But here's throw out the defense. Their defense has given up over 400 yards a game. It only has 1 interception, 2 fumble recoveries in 3 games. So they're creating 1 turnover a game, which isn't very good. But on their offense, they've got 5 guys out. Yep. 3 starting offensive linemen are on injured reserve. Projected starting offensive linemen from the preseason are on injured reserve. And one of the receivers... One of the receivers is on IR, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp can't play.
That's their 2 best weapons on offense right there. Right. I mean, they got Kyron Williams still, but yeah. That's a team that's tough. So my thing is with Caleb, I saw the same thing. The light started to come on some point in the second half last week, and he hadn't thrown a touchdown pass in his career yet. He threw his first one. He got that out of the way. He also threw his first 300-yard game. You also will hear every quarterback that's ever played talk about how at some point the game slows down for them and they get more comfortable. It was clear through the first 2.5 games that had not happened for Caleb Williams yet, but it did seem like he may have turned that corner during the 4th quarter last week. If he can continue that against this Rams defense that, like you said, is banged up, they're bottom of the league. As far as EPA and how efficient they are as a defense, they're ranked 32nd in the NFL.
They got 2 starters in the secondary out, too, on injured reserve.
So this is a chance for Caleb to really get it going. Do you think that happens this week?
Yeah, I think it's set up to. I mean, obviously, and another thing, too, we didn't mention, a lot of times the West Coast teams have gone to the league several times. When we come east, we want to play in the late game.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now they're playing at noon, which is 10 o'clock LA time. And that's a little harder for them to do it.
Yeah.
And so all the advantages are sitting in the Bears' corner right now. They got to go out and execute and do it. They just got to play and take the pressure off. But I'll maybe argue one point with you where I think the light, where he started to get confidence. And it actually was that crossing route to Rome was the long one was in the first half.
Yep.
And when he hit that one, it was after that things started to change.
Yeah, it was a clean pocket. DJ Moore ran a go route down the left side, and Rome kind of ran a crosser across the middle. There was tight coverage, and Caleb threw a layered pass, floated it over the DB, dropped it into a bucket for Rome Odunze. Yeah, that was a beautiful pass and great.
But you know what else was in that play? Eight in the box.
8 in the box and clean pocket and a play action. It was also a play where I remember this was one of the plays I watched a lot. So I remember it clearly when you said it. Caleb was under center. That's a positives. And it was a play action from under center and a clean pocket from the offensive line. All of those going together. And then Caleb threw a beautiful pass to go with it. Yeah, that was one of the most beautiful plays of last week for sure.
But I think when he hit that, all of a sudden his confidence level just jumps up. So, okay, I can do this one. Now I'm going to do another one.
Yep. 100%, man. And I think this week against that Rams team, he's really going to get it going. Hopefully, and this is another thing that goes with it here, Shane Waldron seemed to take accountability, not only in the press conference, but there were reports coming out of Hallis Hall that during the meetings this week, he went into the whiteboard. He listed every single mistake he made in front of the whole team. He let them know. So he's at least being accountable, and I'm hoping Waldron can get it going this week.
Hey, another guy's got a good resume. Seattle put a lot of yards up over the last couple years with him leading that offense. You had a journeyman quarterback throw for over 4,000 yards a couple times. That's crazy. And nobody wanted that quarterback.
Yep.
And Smith. So you can't tell me he can't do it. You still got to do things to support your own players as far as, play to the strengths of your players. Yep. And so you got to make those adjustments. I think I have a feeling this is going to be a big game. I really do. And I'm going to be disappointed if it's not, put it that way. Weather's going to be real good, so there's going to be no excuses.
100%. And I did want to address something from the chat because me and you are both like this, Greg. We both like to block people. But I got this dude running his mouth in the chat right now. All Swift likes to do is block people. Listen, dude, you're in my chat right now running your mouth about me for at least 10 straight chats. That kind of stuff will get you blocked. We're in here talking football. Nobody's talking about getting blocked, dude. But to a point, to kind of further that point, me and Greg both block a lot of people on Twitter because there's a lot of idiots out there in the world, and there's a lot of people that will argue forever. But I go to training camp every year, and guess what I saw this year? Right when I showed up at training camp one day, right? Yeah. 4 people yelling my name, Swift, Swift. I walk over to them, shake all their hands. Guess what all 4 of them told me? You got me blocked on Twitter, Swift. Yeah. Guess what I did immediately? Unblocked all 4 of them, took pictures with them because guess what? Real life is not Twitter. Nobody cares about Twitter. Nobody
gets so upset.
Nobody wants to argue every day. Like that stuff's just annoying. We're here to talk Bears football. So talk Bears football or I will block you. That's how it is.
Yeah, I look at it this way. It's my account. I own it. I want to see the remarks I want to see. And if I see something I don't like, I'm blocking them. I don't care. I don't know. I don't know the person. I've never met him. He's just a name, or in most cases, a nameless, faithless.
The worst one is they always say like, oh, you always want to block everyone that disagrees with you. And it's like, no, listen, tons of people disagree with me, and I'm very capable of having a conversation with someone that disagrees with me. The thing I don't want is someone who just repeats the same thing over and over and tries to argue with you on every single post or every single video about the exact same thing. Those or people that are disrespectful, those people get blocked. But that's all about that.
Okay, no, we got one more thing because
Yeah,
couple
I love
guys,
these. Yeah,
this not a couple, there's probably a half a dozen that this week, I mentioned something about Fields and I was sticking up for Caleb early in the week, and somebody says, well, you were one of the guys that ran Fields out of town. And I looked and I go, huh? Are you crazy? Man, I was the man I was the guy who was the leader of the club to keep me here. Get your facts right before you start flapping your jaws. Because most of these people just write anything, and some of them are just little punks. And if I block them, tough shit.
Hey, that's how I feel, man, too. That's how I feel too. It's just I love we're here to talk Bears football and have a good time. And nobody's here to argue about dumb stuff every day. But so this is something I did want to talk about with you, Greg, because this is something I actually tweeted about this yesterday. College football kickers. Now, this is something. So I love Cairo Santos, right? And I'm a guy. I said it when I tweeted it. Look, I'm not trying to say we need to get rid of Cairo right now. But what I've seen over 4 weeks of college football is this next wave of kickers. What are they putting in the water? These guys are nailing 60-plus yarders. They're nailing 55-plus yard kicks on the regular. There are 30 kickers in the college football right now that have kicked 50-plus yard field goals this year, more than in the NFL. It's kind of crazy. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, number one, and the biggest reason that happens, it's a different ball.
Yeah.
Totally different ball. The NFL has got they're using brand new balls, the kickers are, every single week. They are hard as a rock, and they're not easy to kick. Okay, and the officials go over those balls every week, make sure the air pressure's right. They're new balls right out of the box. They have been scuffed up. Now you go to college. And the story I told you about this off the air a little bit. So I'm at a game, and I didn't realize this at first. And then God, it had to be 20 years ago that I picked up on it, but it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And
let me see.
There is a punting ball and a place kicker ball for the college kickers. And there is a designated person. You go to a college game, big time college game, you'll notice there's one guy that's got those two balls with him all the time. Sometimes they're in a box. It might even be a heated box for all I know. But he has the box that, he's got a strap around his neck and he's got the balls in his box. So I'm sitting at a game. It was Georgia, Arkansas, at Georgia. And the guy next to me was former NFL official Jerry Markbright, who is from Evanston, but he was down there. He was retired from the NFL as a referee, and he was scouting officials for the league, and in this case, SEC officials. So and I know Jerry because he used to come into Hallis Hall to watch NFL game tape to grade the officials on what they had done the previous week. He'd be there on Mondays and Tuesdays every single week. So I got to know him. He's a good guy. But anyway, fast forward a little bit. He goes, Greg, look at how good these guys kick it. How come our guys can't kick like that? So I said, Jerry, next time, watch the ball. Just watch what happens with the ball on both a place kick and a punt. He says, okay. So there's a punt. Punt goes out of the end zone. There's a guy there, retrieves the ball, puts it in the box, comes back right at midfield. Same thing with a field goal. He goes, what are they doing? I said, those are special balls. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they're overinflated. They're scuffed up. They're real old. It's not brand new balls like they use in the NFL. They're very, very soft, all scuffed up. They're probably the oldest balls in the damn building. The kicker's been using them for his whole career at the school, and they go a lot further. So you've got to, in fact, it's funny when you get to the combine, the kicking coaches or the special teams coaches always laughed. He goes, "This could be funny watching these guys try to kick an NFL ball." when they've, all the practice they've done has been with their scuffed up college balls. And then they get to the combine and they can't kick the ball worth of shit.
Now, I will say this. So just as a guy who's watched football for a long time, like we both have, if you go back 20 years ago, teams rarely would even attempt 50-plus yard field goals. And now you're seeing multiple of them not only attempted, but connected in almost every game. Even going back last night's Miami-Virginia Tech game, it was just another one. These aren't not even some of the biggest kickers in the nation. And you get a 58-yarder, a 56-yarder, and a 53. And the guy who hit the 56 and the 52 had never attempted a field goal in college football yet. This was his first one. And he goes out there and bangs a 56-yarder. So I feel like kickers are getting better. And I think we're going to have an opportunity over the next 2 or 3 years to grab one of these guys who can nail these 60-plus yard field goals.
Probably. I mean, that's just the way things go or the way things evolve. Cairo's got a good leg. In fact, when he first came here, if you noticed, he struggled to get touchbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He's out of the end zone all the time now when he wants to be. And it's, strengthening the right muscles. It's hitting the ball just right. And then going from there. Now, on that, what was it, a 56-yarder he just missed last week? I mean, he missed it by about this much.
Yep.
It went right underneath he was on. I mean, it was perfect target. It was right in the middle.
Down the middle.
Right down the middle, but it just went under. He needed just a little more oomph on that kick, and he makes it. But that's probably his range is 55 yards. Yep. That's a good kick. You're going to take that. But, to say he's not going to go out and kick a 60 like the guy in Kansas City, shoot, he can kick 65.
Yeah. No, and so can the Dallas Cowboys guy. And then it was a freshman last week. Do you remember Martin Gramatica, longtime kicker for the Bucs and Cardinals? His son is a freshman, and he came out and hit a 60-plus yard field goal as a freshman last week. And it was like, dang, like that's a freshman coming out. It's like it's going to be 3 more years till he's in the NFL. But
you know what else there is too? There's more kicking schools, kicking academies around the country than there have been. So you got guys going to these places where they can specialize in things. Now, technically, what happens, a lot of these special teams coaches, they have some of these kicking gurus have all their guys kicking for NFL people. Technically, it's against the rules, because you're only allowed to work out of 2 places in the spring leading up to the draft, at your school or in your hometown. But kind of off the charts, you got the kickers kicking for everybody at these places, and the league hasn't come down on it yet. But I think it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. But I know for a fact last year that I can't remember who the kicker was, but there was or a bunch of kickers were at one place kicking the same day, and I'm going, this isn't legal. But they're doing it and getting away with it.
Oh, man. And then A-Rod has a good comment here as well. I think stats are always skewed a little bit when you're only 3 weeks into the season, but the stats do show the touchdowns are down significantly this year. You heard the dumb comments from Mel Kiper about, too high safety should be banned, but teams have reverted back to playing a lot of too high safety, whereas
not against the Bears.
Yeah, over the last few years, though, there have been a lot more single high safety. But, yeah, true.
Mel's a good friend, and he called me after that because he was getting a lot of shit. So, and
a lot.
And he was trying to sell me, and I said, hey, if that's what you believe. You know what he said? He goes, I just want to see you. And he was going back now because when he called me, he's going back to the 70s when John Stallworth and Lynn Swan were catching deep balls from Terry Bradshaw. And he goes, you don't see that anymore. And well, part of it you don't see it is because the DBs are so damn good. It's not just the 2 deep safeties. It's the DBs are just really, really good, and the pass rushes are better. So, but it's funny because then right after he does this last week, and then you put on the Bears game, and they're the deep safeties 9 yards off, off the ball. Crazy. You go, that's the game you wanted, the deep safeties. That would have opened up the run game.
100%. Tyler, thanks so much for the super chat. Calling it now. Caleb has 3 touchdowns. Don't say 1 interception. Let's go 0 interceptions, knock on wood. And then I did want to comment about Jaden Daniels. I want to get your opinion on this because someone just said it. Jaden has 5 touchdowns, 0 turnovers in 3 weeks. Yep. What I will say about that, based on what I've seen, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Jaden. I think he's played absolutely terrific. But one thing that they're doing there that I'm not sure how it'll translate long term is Clint Kubiak is running a college style of offense, very similar to what Jaden Daniels ran in college.
Kubiak's not at Kubiak.
Did I say Kubiak? I mean Cliff Kingsbury, the other guy with the KK initials. My bad. Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury. We're going to talk about Kubiak in a bit, but Cliff Kingsbury's running that college style of offense there. Do you think that can work long term, or is it something he's going to transition?
But the other thing that I noticed, and I didn't watch a whole lot of that game, but I had watched before I had turned that game on, I had already watched the Bears tape to see what was going on with the run game. So I turn on that game and I'm looking and I'm seeing 2 deep safeties, 6 in the box max. So the run game's open, the defense is spread out, and I go, well, hell, if Caleb played against this, he'd put up big numbers too.
Yep.
And I kind of thought the same thing. I don't know what happened in Cincinnati, but they're horrendous.
That defense, man, they haven't lost much other than the big defensive tackle. What was his name? DJ Reader, I think. They lost him to Detroit, but other than that, I don't know what happened to that defense.
I have a sneaking suspicion a lot has to do with money because and even though they're on the other side of the ball, there's guys that are kind of pissed off that the good guys aren't getting paid.
Yeah, I could see that. Man, that's tough for Cincinnati though, but they have played awful through 3 games because I mean. Ken says I give membership so Swift won't block me. Sorry, that one made me laugh. Got me, Ken. But you did want to talk about Clint Kubiak, though, didn't you? Did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, the only thing is that you start seeing this stuff. So Flus hired the wrong guy. Should have hired Kubiak. Saw a bunch of that. I said, okay. Let's go back to last year. And what was the big thing you all wanted from a new offensive coordinator that Luke Getsy didn't have? He had to have experience calling plays. Yes. What was Kubiak's experience calling plays besides zilch?
He had that. Did he have the 1 year in Minnesota or no? I thought it was Kubiak had 1 year where he called plays in Minnesota.
He didn't have it in San Francisco. Shanahan did. I knew that. So could he have in Minnesota 1 year? Yeah, he could have. But I know coming out of San Francisco, and basically, his dad worked with Shanahan's dad, and that's where this McVay Shanahan offense came from. And so he knows it because he grew up with it, but he doesn't have the experience calling plays. And that was what everybody wanted. Yep. So, and I think that probably had a little bit to do with it, where Shane had 3 years in Seattle calling plays.
Yeah. And I said this before to someone because they said the same thing. And it was, I said, what did we want I said that exact same question that you did because someone said, why didn't we hire Kubiak? And I was like, what was the one thing we were looking for in a play caller? And they didn't answer it right. I was like, no, an experience calling plays in the NFL. And you're like you said, Waldron had 3 to 4 years of doing it. Kubiak had the 1 year in Minnesota in 2021 when the offense was pretty vanilla. And then next year when Kevin O'Connell took over, the offense took a big step forward. So based on what you had seen from Kubiak so far, I was under the same opinion. Shane Waldron was by far the number 1 option. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, the day that Pete Carroll got let go from Seattle, he became the number 1 offensive coordinator on the market.
I remember someone on Twitter, my guy Chicago John, he sent me a message 5 minutes after it happened, and he said, "We got to get Waldron to Chicago." And I talked about him. I had him number one on my list, and like someone else said right here, Ant Moss, he's worked with young quarterbacks. Not only the work he's done with Geno Smith, but he works at the quarterback collective, and he already knew Caleb Williams. He already knows C.J. Stroud. He already knew Jaden Daniels. He already knew all these young quarterbacks and had relationships with them. So that's another positive I think that people overlook with Shane Waldron.
Yeah, I'm going to let a season play out, not 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Especially 3 games when you got a rookie, and then 3 games when you got a rookie where they're stacking the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
You know, you got to let the whole thing play out. In fact, I hope they put up about 420 yards tomorrow, because then I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Hey, that'll be fun. That'll be a fun day. So I will say this, I do want to bring up something. I haven't talked about it all yet, but I watched this podcast late last night. You probably didn't see it yet, so I'm going to tell you what happened. Do you know who Zaire Franklin is, Colts linebacker?
Yeah. I know who he is. I don't know him.
He's been with the Colts his entire career.
Right.
He spent his first 4 years under Matt Eberflus, but he was not a starter. The starter was Darius Leonard. He was the big-time linebacker, you know. On his podcast last night, he said some stuff about Ryan Poles that I want to repeat, because I think a lot of people in the chat probably haven't heard it. And then once I tell you this, I want to hear your thoughts. But he said a couple of his thoughts. He clearly does not like Matt Eberflus, and said he even had to bite his tongue a little bit. But he said basically, as a 7th-round pick, a guy, every time he was climbing up the ladder, Eberflus would pull it out from underneath him. He said not only did he not believe in me, but he would go out of his way to keep information from him. He wouldn't tell him what his checks were as a linebacker. He wouldn't tell him what his responsibilities were. He said Eberflus did not want me to be prepared and would get mad at me if I even asked a question. So this was something, I hadn't heard anything like this from anyone yet, but this was a guy who clearly, and he spent 5 years with Eberflus, and he said, look, me and Flus, we have an okay relationship. We still talk, but he said he was glad when Eberflus left. He was happy when it happened, and he has no love lost for the guy, and basically made it seem like Eberflus has favorites in the locker room, and that as a guy who was very talented, because Zaire Franklin was a 7th-round pick, very talented, but a lot of times 7th-round picks don't get a lot of opportunities. He said he wouldn't get reps in practice. He wouldn't get reps in training camp. He said he told a story about Darius Leonard missed a preseason game. They just scratched him, late scratch. He was supposed to play, didn't play. Eberflus didn't say a word to Zaire all week. Actually, it was a regular season game, I'm sorry, against the Patriots and Tom Brady. And he said, I didn't know I was going to start that game until 30 minutes before the game. And he was starting as the Mike linebacker. He said, guess how many reps I got at Mike linebacker all preseason and camp? 4. He said, I got 4 reps all preseason. And 30 minutes before the game, Eberflus tells me I'm starting. And he said, Tom Brady tore me apart. He said he tore me apart. He said I was awestruck. I was a rookie. But basically, the whole point of the story here is there a lot of negativity there towards Matt Eberflus and the way he handles players. Do you have any thoughts on that? I know this is your first time hearing it, but do you have any takeaway?
I'm not totally buying it, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I mean, I can find out the real answer by picking up the phone and making one phone call. Because one of my closest friends in the world's a GM there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and if that actually happened, I can find out. But that would be like the story of the game where he didn't know he was going to start. Well, who the hell was practicing during the week? Because Leonard wasn't practicing during the week.
He made it seem like he said there was a lot of linebackers there. I mean, Bobby Okereke was there, EJ Speed, Darius Leonard, and they had one other guy as well. Like pretty much that linebacker room was stacked. So I do get that, but I didn't watch the practices, but I don't know. But based on his words, because he repeated it twice, he was not getting any reps at that position all camp and all preseason.
The only thing I could think of it now, I mean, that would be counterproductive for any coach to go into a game, put somebody in the game, start their game off, unless there's some other unanswered question that he didn't let know in that thing. Because I've played football. I know there's coaches you have that you got a bone to pick with, and one of mine is Mike Marks. Mike Marks can't do anything right in my mind. Okay. So no matter what he does, I'm going to badmouth him. I just don't like anything about it. I think, when he came here, when Lovey brought him here, and we didn't want Lovey to do it. We kept trying to talk Lovey out of it, but his offense, when he created that offense, it was a super offense, but the league caught up to it. And they learned how to defense it. And he didn't know how to make adjustments. And he had one of the big things is that there was the play call, and that's it. You couldn't check out of the play. No matter, quarterback comes to the line of scrimmage, he looks over and goes, oh, this play isn't going to work. And there's nothing he could do about it, which was in itself wrong. But, and then obviously the big thing is Greg Olson. You got a Pro Bowl tight end that he had no idea how to use and forced us into trading him. So I get that, because I've got my own feelings about certain coaches that just, no matter what they do, it's not right. But there's always two sides. I'm not going to say he's wrong. I'm not going to say he's right. There's always two sides.
Yep. But that's the biggest part for me is, I mean, we've seen other things from Eberflus, and he did go on to say, look, this was Eberflus when he was drafted. His rookie year was also Eberflus's first year as a defensive coordinator.
They had 4 years together because Flus was there for.
Yeah, but his first year, it was his rookie season. So, I mean.
Right, so that's 18, 19, 20, and 21.
Yep.
Flus was with the Colts, and 22 he was here.
Yep. And those 4 years, he said, so it was Eberflus was a rookie defensive coordinator when he was a rookie linebacker. So he said, I'm not putting too much against the guy. He can make mistakes. It was his first time being a DC. Maybe he overlooked some of the small details of things he had to do because he was a linebacker coach, basically running the entire defense from the linebacker room. But over the 3 years that Matt Eberflus had been here, 2 and some change, we have seen some weird things as far as how he handles the depth chart. Nate Davis not practicing, but getting named the starter. Even Caleb Williams being named the starter before ever taking a single snap at even rookie minicamp. I just think there are some things. And what about last year with Trevis Gibson, a guy who played awesome in preseason, gets cut, doesn't look like it. I think there are some things there about Eberflus where.
Well, I'm gonna say one thing about that, and part of that's on Poles. Number one, Poles has control of the 53, not Eberflus.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, he's obviously going to take Eberflus's words. Like, who do you want here?
And I was with you. I was surprised that Trevis Gibson got cut because he played his ass off. I thought he earned a spot on the 53. But, what we don't see is you don't see every day in practice. You don't see meetings. And they take the previous years into account because they know what the players have done previously. Mm-hmm. But what's reality? What has Trevis Gibson done since he left besides nothing? He's now on his second team since the Bears cut him.
Well, and then, I mean, Justin Fields also. So there's been a lot that happened this week because Justin Fields also came out and said the Steelers coaches are better than the Bears. That's not a talking point to me. That's just a fact. They have Mike Tomlin. He's a future Hall of Famer. And they have another former head coach in Arthur Smith calling plays compared to what he had here, Nagy, Getsy, and Eberflus. So, but the point, he did say something else. He talked about how they talked to him at the end of the season. And it made it seem like he was talking to Eberflus and how Eberflus wasn't direct with him. He said basically they set him down and told him, we're in a situation that we've never been in before, so just hang tight. We'll keep you informed. But he was just to Justin Fields, he said he took it as they wouldn't talk to him as a man because to him they told him, we've never been in this situation before. But Justin is sitting there and he's like, what do you mean you've never been in this situation before? We had the number 1 pick last year. How is this a new situation? So, and he said they had the same conversation the year before and it went completely different. They were like, you're the guy, don't worry about anything. But then this year when they set him down, they didn't say, look, we're thinking about drafting a quarterback. They didn't tell him that. They said, it's a situation we've never been in. So it just makes it seem like maybe Matt Eberflus is missing something when it comes to how he communicates with his players and how he comes off. I have always taught when I look at Eberflus, you know, in those mic'd up things and those little videos the Bears show, I've always thought he's a little awkward. He's going around telling people he loves them. I love you, giving them nicknames. Spidey, hey, Mako, you know, I don't know. What's your vibe you get from Matt Eberflus overall?
A little different. I'll give you that. But I forget about what happened at the end of the season because I got my feeling about that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let out something that I have said just once before. I'm not going to say who the person's name is, but Caleb is going to say what he said because of the situation he's in right now. He's going to be all pro Pittsburgh. He was on a Pittsburgh podcast, Pittsburgh podcast with one of his teammates. They're 3-0. He's having success. Now, he isn't tearing it up. He had his best game last week. He had 250 yards in the air, but the 2 weeks before that were very average as far as quarterback numbers. You know, they're not. And I like Caleb, but they're not winning because of Caleb. And the last week they won more because of Caleb than the 2 previous weeks. But the first 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, they, you know, it was the defense that has won the games for him. You know, Caleb's thrown for what, 130 and 150 yards or something in the first 2 weeks. And then last week he threw for over 250. And I think they're opening up things as he becomes more involved in the offense. Arthur Smith is getting him more involved, having him do more. But he is a Pittsburgh Steeler now, so he is going to be very pro Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, I don't think in my life I've ever heard a player who was on a team say that he liked coaches on his previous team better than the coaches on the current team. Like that's. But it was true. The Steelers coaches, I'm taking them every day over the Bears coaching staff. That's just a fact.
You know, that's fine. You know, I'm wouldn't even attempt to argue that point with you. I'm just where Caleb was coming from is the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. And I don't want to make this sound like I'm trying to stick up for Flus because it's not. I'm just trying to give you the other side, the possible other side of the story. And there's a person in the front office that didn't think that Fields could get the job done. And this goes back to the year before.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, in his mind, they would have got rid of him the year before. But Poles and Flus overruled. Yeah. And so
I've even heard rumors it might have been Ian Cunningham who didn't think Justin could do that.
I'll tell you off the air, but I'm not going to tell you on the air. So because I just don't think that's right on my part.
Yeah,
to do that. So, but anyway, I think they made up their mind during the season that, you know, when they knew, you know what, we're going to have a shot at Caleb or Daniels. They were clearly the 2 best guys. And I know for a fact that Poles really thought highly of the Michigan kid who was a local kid.
JJ McCarthy, yeah.
Yes. So, you know, 2 different people had told me that just, you know, he said he just liked his makeup was the term that was used. So, but anyway, that being said, I think they made up their mind. Hey, it's time to move on. Whether we liked it or not, it's time to move on, and this is the way we're going to do it. So when Flus says we're facing something we haven't faced before, he's not lying. He really isn't, because his bosses are saying, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And that's what, so when it comes to this quarterback class, though, did you have any thoughts on why Poles didn't interview those other quarterbacks? Jaden Daniels wasn't brought in. I mean, they did meet with them at the combine.
Well,
That
at the combine,
but
and
no
they went to
one-on-one.
the pro days. It's
Yeah,
not like they didn't go to the pro days.
that's true. Yeah,
They made up their mind based on. Well, there's a couple things that were like, we were told that Caleb only saw one team at the combine, and that was the Bears. I mean, that's what the media said, right? Well, then you watch Hard Knocks with the Giants, and he was in the Giants room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he
Media
saw
makes
more than
stuff
one
up.
team. What?
The media makes stuff up. We know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who else did he go see? If he went to the Giants, who were what, number 5 or number 6, he went to see the Redskins, and hell, he's from Washington. Why wouldn't he go there?
Definitely saw.
And why did I say the Redskins? Because
they're Commanders, Patriots. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we've been calling them that for years, but yeah, the Commanders, Patriots. Yeah.
But hey, I'm not going to get. You go through this stuff having sat, you make your decisions. You sit in his office and you got to move forward. You can't look back. You just got to say, okay, this is the decision we're making. We're going with it. I think as much I wanted to keep Caleb, because I said, okay, if you trade down, you're going to get another big package. That team around is going to be better, and they're going to win because of the players on the team, not necessarily Caleb. But I think in the long run, when you look at it, the big picture, Caleb is never going to be as good as, or Justin's never going to be as good as Caleb.
I think that's clear. And I was as big of a Justin Fields fan as there was. And I think it's been clear in just the 6 months that we've had him on the team, 3 games that he's struggled. Caleb Williams has some of the most elite traits I've ever seen from a quarterback. He had 2 passes last week. He had the one where he was on the run and he got the late hit call, the roughing the passer, but He's on the run and throws it sidearm, takes a hit in the face, but the sidearm pass around a defender and hits DJ Moore in the hands. And then he had the other one on the run later in the game where he breaks out of the pocket, is on the run, and throws a dime to DJ Moore on the sideline. That one got called back on a holding. But those 2 plays didn't even count. And those were two of the best throws I've seen in the last 10 years from Bears quarterbacks. So I've seen enough. I know he's going to be incredible. I'm all in on Caleb Williams for sure.
Yeah, they just got to keep building up around him and go from there. Go back to the offensive line. Go back to Poles and his presser at the end of training camp going into the start of the season. And he said he felt better about, you probably recall this, better about the offensive line this year than he ever has in the 3 years he's been here.
Yeah.
But, and then the offense, now he still doesn't have the guy playing at center that he wants, and Ryan Bates, who's a, bigger, stronger, sturdier guy than the other guy is, and Shelton is. So, it's at least 2 more weeks before Bates can come back, because he went on IR after game 1. And this will only be the 3rd game he's going to miss. So he's got to miss 1 more after this.
Okay.
So we'll see then. But I personally feel, I felt going into the season, this team should be 2-2 after 4 games. I believe right now they're on that pace to be 2-2.
We have a shot against the Rams. My biggest worry when it comes to the Rams, because right now the defense has been awful, and the offense, you're missing your 2 best playmakers, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Right. They're going to rely heavily on the run game with Kyron Williams. But what I'm worried about, coaching. Sean McVay is in a class of his own compared to Matt Eberflus. And that's my biggest worry of this one, is we're going to get out-coached badly. Naj just said it right there. McVay versus Flus. Are you worried about that, or how worried are you about that?
It's a very valid point. And I wrote this that come out later today. and wrote in Windy City for the matchup, and it could be out now. Might have come out while we were on the show. I don't know, but you got two coaches on the Bears staff, in Walden and Joseph, that spent 4 years and 3 years respectively in LA working for McVay. If there's anybody that knows how McVay thinks and McVay works, it's those two guys. So where that's not going to help the Bears offense, it's actually going to help Flus and the Bears defense.
Yep, 100%. Daryl, thanks for the super chat. He said Caleb was named the starter before camp because of politics over coaching. But someone else made a comment here that Caleb Williams has been on a downward trajectory ever since 2022 Pac-12 championship game. And I just had to read Ken's comment here. So I guess people are thinking that Caleb peaked during not only was it not his sophomore year of college. People think he peaked as a sophomore. Let's be real with that, guys. Come on now.
Hey, you know what? Until they played Notre Dame last year, he was having one super football season.
Mm-hmm. He was having a big time year, and that was a bad game, and that was definitely his worst game of his career. That Notre Dame.
The defensive coordinator at Notre Dame was the linebacker coach at Cincinnati. So for a number of years, and the game plan that he used against USC was the game plan Cincinnati used against Patrick Mahomes when they beat Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game. It was because similar type players being able to scramble, make plays on with their feet, have the off balance throws, everything like that. So they used the same type of defense, and it worked to a charm.
Did 3 interceptions that game in the first half.
Yeah,
probably the worst game of his career.
And I don't think I said last year, and that was one of my big concerns with Caleb. I said I don't think he ever recovered from that game during the college season. But then I went on to find out that, and I found it out after the fact, that USC team was really weak character-wise in the locker room, and that's on their head coach.
Yep. And you could see that after that loss, I think a lot of the players kind of checked out a little bit. They weren't really, especially the second loss, once you're out of the national title picture and you're not a team that's going to be in the playoffs, because last year there were still only 4 playoff teams. This year, my favorite thing about college football, it's opened up a little bit, 12-team playoffs this year. And I will say this, today is a big day for college football. I don't know how many Bears fans out there watch it, but Alabama versus Georgia tonight, that's about as must-watch as you can get in college football. And at the same time, you have Illinois taking on Penn State. So I'm going to be – are you going to be watching those games tonight? I imagine so.
Yeah. I already started. I was watching a little bit of Kentucky and Ole Miss before we started this. And then, I always watch Notre Dame, so I'm going to watch that game at 2:30. And then I always switch back and forth anyway. And
I always have multiple games on, same way, yeah.
Yeah, and then tonight, obviously, Georgia and Alabama. It's going to be interesting because Alabama, it's a different Alabama team than when Saban was there. Mm-hmm. Playing different schemes. I'm going to tell you what, I wouldn't give you 10 cents for that quarterback Milroe a year ago.
Milroe, yeah.
Oh my God, he couldn't hit water from a boat.
He looked bad last year. He did.
So that tells me something about this coach, because that guy has got this kid slinging the football really well.
And then also, I mean, Q said you got to have that Texas Tech game on in the background too. The big thing about tonight, though, with that Alabama-Georgia game is this is a big draft for us coming up, I think. This is the one where Ryan Poles has to address the offensive line. And you have 2 of the best offensive lines in football going head-to-head. Alabama and Georgia, they got 2 guards that could potentially go in the first round next year. One of the best centers in the draft for Alabama, that Parker Brailsford. So a lot of talent in the trenches, and that's what I'm going to be watching.
Now, is Rutledge hurt? The guard for Georgia, the
Yep,
right
Rutledge,
guard.
and
Yeah,
then Booker, and then Georgia has another guard. Fairchild is
Fairchild. He's not as good as Rutledge.
not as good as Rutledge.
I think somebody said Rutledge might be hurt, but I don't. I
He
don't
didn't
know
play
that
last week. I
Right.
haven't heard if he will this week yet.
But and then LSU's got 2 tackles too that are pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot. I've done a bunch of the linemen already for the agents that I work for, and yeah, I mean it's a good draft to want an offensive lineman. I haven't really seen a top center, but in my mind, center is you create a center.
I love the USC center. If you haven't seen him yet, so he was with Caleb Williams the last 2 years, but he played guard. Jonah Monheim. This year he transitioned to center. Man, he's looked awesome. I really like that kid. And then my sleeper is Iowa's center, Logan Jones. He's on Bruce Feldman's freaks list. He's an athletic freak. But when I've watched him 3 times this year, and that guy gets incredible push off the line of scrimmage. He looks like a monster. And then Alabama, watch their center tonight, Parker Brailsford. He was with Washington last year with Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze.
Right.
He transferred to Bama this year. He's a little on the lighter side, 275, but to me, he's a top 3 center. I think if he bulks up a little bit, he's a guy I really like as well.
Well, point I was trying to make too is when I look at guards, and then a lot of times you got to have to tackle who ends up playing the guard. Like there's a couple tackles I've done where like a perfect example, the left tackle of Texas,
Calvin Banks Jr.
Everybody loves. Texas lists him at 6'4" even. Okay, so and he's underclassman, so he hadn't been measured. The guys who were seniors this year, Blesto and National Scouting got verified height and weight for most of those guys from the spring, but not the underclassmen.
Okay.
So if he comes out and he's a 6'3.5" guy, he isn't playing tackle. I don't care how good a left tackle he is at Texas. He isn't playing tackle in the NFL.
Yep.
Sean Slater from Northwestern, that was the question with him, was height and arm length. Well, he hit like the bare minimum at the combine, 33-inch arms right on the button, and he was 6'4 1/8. And so he just scraped by. But if you got a guy, I think there's only a couple tackles in the league that measure under 6'4". Bears had one for years.
Leno,
and then he went to he was 6'3 7/8", who then went to Washington for a long time, but he had like 35-inch arms.
Mm-hmm. Charles Leno, yeah. So same. I mean, this is a very talented group of interior offensive line prospects. The other guy is Alabama's Tyler Booker, but all 3 of Alabama's, both of their guards and their center are going to get drafted next year. So really good night or matchup for interior line prospects. And we're going to go ahead, and we're already over an hour, and we both want to watch some college football. So any final points or anything, Greg?
No, I'm going to predict a win. I wrote in Windy City, I said it's going to be at least by 10 points.
Bears win by 10?
At least.
Bears win by 10, chat. You guys heard it here first from Greg Gabriel. Throw some FGBs in the chat and hit that like button for me. Greg, as always, man, honor to have you on here.
Hey, let's do it again in 2 weeks, my friend.
2 weeks, guys. Bear down.